Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 18 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. So when you're starting anything new, whether it's a new path or a new hobby or just any kind of new endeavor, a lot of times we get tripped up because we have this fear. And what is this a fear of? It's a fear of failure. We say, but what if I can't do it? What if it won't work? Why bother even trying? And if you have any of these thoughts running through your head, my friend, you'll want to listen in to today's episode on how to make failure impossible. So the other day I went for a run with my husband, Jay, and it's a rarity that we work out, let alone run together because we have kids. And we used to do this all the time. We'd work out together prior to kids, but after having two little girls, normally one of us is at home while the other one goes out for a workout or we work out at home. So we happened to have this rare bit of time, so we decided to go running together the first time again in many years. And when we haven't run consistently in a long time. We used to be runners, again, all before kids. But, you know, he does CrossFit now. I do yoga, Tracy Anderson method, running, a bunch of other things as I, kind of make up my own consistent workout. But that day we were running in the woods near our house, and then we ran onto a local track. We decided to run a couple laps on that track, and as I was running, I remembered the mile in high school. I don't know how many of you all remember that event, but it was a rite of passage, similar to, for us, we had an outdoor kind of ropes course as well as a, whole pool session. But the mile, I remember, was pretty significant. And at the time that I did the mile, I remember I was playing lacrosse and field hockey, so I was pretty fit, and I was eating healthy, and I was running a lot, sprinting, doing long distance runs, all those good things. So I was in pretty good shape to be able to do a mile. And I remember the day came, and I believe my time was 6 minutes and either maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds, something like that. And I remember it wasn't easy, obviously, and I pushed myself to get there. So I'm with Jay, and we're running on this track, and I'm thinking, how fast am I actually going? And I'm not really pushing myself, but I'm super curious about my time. And so I look at my watch as I go around the track, and it was about 2 minutes and 4 seconds for the first lap. And that would be about an 8-minute, 16-second mile at that pace. So I ran around a second time, a little bit faster, and I was at 1 minute and 58 seconds. So as I huffed and puffed off the track, again, this is summer, so it was also really hot and humid, to run the rest of our run, it got me thinking, what if I try to beat my time, or at least hit it in the 6 minute and change mile? What if I did that now, right? So I started thinking more about this idea, and I realized, I don't know, is it even possible? But even if it wasn't possible, what really struck me was that even if it was going to take longer than I wanted or expected to get there, it wouldn't really matter. And why was that? And this is the interesting thing. Because I'd be running. I'd be training, I'd be running faster, I'd be pushing myself harder, and I'd have to be really intentional at rest, recovery, and essentially perform like an athlete. So when we set goals or we have dreams or something that we think that we'd like to do, we often crush it before we ever give it a try because of that F word, the fear, and the other F word, failure. So we've gotten so used to doing all of these things that we do in our lives pretty well. And we're either relatively good at something or we're actually really good at it. And so to try something where we don't think we're likely to succeed seems uncomfortable. But what if you changed your perspective around failure? What if you realized that it's not only where you end up, but it's also about who you are becoming along the way? So how would you think about failure then? So if I were to try to run a faster time than I did when I was in high school, it would mean that I'm going to be working on my body consistently and in new and different ways with, a goal in mind. And I already exercise every day, but this would be different. This would have a really specific target of speed, and then it would become less about achieving the goal, but more about what happened by trying to achieve the goal. So this is how you make failure impossible. If you're able to become a person or become more of the person you want to be along the way just by trying, then failure isn't really an option. So for me, I'd be improving my health, my body, and even just the mental endurance of trying to do all of this in the sweltering New York summers, just by trying. That would be something that I would be proud of. So every quarter, I try to set some big goals for myself. I actually do this also monthly too, but on the quarter, I try to think of even bigger or long-term ones. And it's lots and lots of big goals. And I still work on one at a time. And sometimes I'll do two because maybe I've gotten one kind of underway and I'm starting the next one up. But I try to push myself to dream, to be curious, and to think about a long list of experiences I'd like to have or even skills that I'd like to develop. And what do you think it feels like to be on this path of achieving these goals? Do you think that the path to hit the goals looks like a straight line? No, of course not. Not only that, if I really want to get good at something, it actually better not look like a straight line. And so this is my second belief about failure. The first one being that it's about who you become along the way. The second one is that it's necessary. It's necessary for me to have these failures if I want to actually be amazing, if I want to be world class, if I want to actually achieve my goals. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this book called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. So in this book, I love this book, he explains how greatness isn't born, it's grown. And specifically, he speaks about myelin, which is this insulation that wraps around our nerve fibers, kind of like coils around it, that enables you to fire this circuit even more quickly and even more accurately. So therefore, the struggle is real and the struggle is required. And when you conduct something he calls deep practice, you're firing your circuits, you're fixing mistakes, and you fire it over and over again. Fire circuits, fix mistakes, fire circuits, fix mistakes. And when you do this, what you're doing is you're biologically creating the myelin you need to create this neural broadband, this pathway that connects movement, right? Human movement, your thoughts or your feelings. And all of these movements, thoughts, or feelings are essentially electrical charges that are just running through these chains of neurons. And this chain of neurons is called our nerve fiber. So every failure we have, if we don't let it stop us and instead work through them, allows us to get better and better every time, right? So this is his first concept around deep practice. You actually fire the circuit, you fix the mistake, you fire the circuit, the myelin keeps wrapping. And what happens is when things are just handed to us and they're easy, our myelin doesn't grow, which is one of the reasons why we don't recommend, right, television to our kids, especially at a certain age, because they're not encouraged then to develop all these kind of neural circuits in their own ways, right? Where they have to figure things out and get them to connect, and therefore the myelin, is wrapping and gets created. They're just kind of fed all these things. And so similar to, these little kids, we want and need ourselves to have a little bit of the struggle, or maybe a lot bit of the struggle, depending how good you want to get, so that our myelin keeps growing. And so if you think about all these great athletes or artists, or anyone just really excelling in a particular field or growing and learning at a rate that seems way more rapid than quote unquote the norm, they're using this myelin-based way of wiring so that they get better and better faster, right? And it's this idea of, can you do like 6 minutes of practice and get a month's worth of practice in by training yourself to do this deep practice in this specific way, where you're actually consistently going over and over and over again the same neural circuits, but you're doing it and fixing the mistake and you're making it better and better. So knowing this, like really knowing this now, how would you now view failure? How would you view stumbling? How would you think about what messing up, quote unquote, messing up really looks like? So now, if you're really honest and you think about it, it's all just a stepping stone to greatness, to becoming even better, to doing anything in a way that's faster, better, more accurate than you ever have done before. So the second point around this book is really around, it's not how good you are, but it's how good you want to be. And so all of this makes sense, I know. But how do we ensure that we're failing at the right things? We don't mind failure if we actually know what direction that we're heading towards. But what if we're not sure where we're going? What if we don't desire to even fail forward in this direction? And this is where his second concept comes into play. So Daniel Coyle calls this second concept, quote unquote, ignition. It's this passion, this desire, this hunger, and this need to make whatever it is that you're trying to do happen. And while most of the examples he uses are people who are coming from either humble beginnings and therefore they really need to increase the quality of their life and make sure that whatever they're doing works, whether they're coming from kind of tragedies or a lot of uncertainty in their lives prior. And it's true that pain is one heck of a good motivator to keep you practicing. I'm also interested in how to have this kind of drive even when you have a good or great life already. Because we all understand that when you're in a really tough or bad situation, you're trying to get to good, that all makes sense. But what happens when you feel like life is already good? What if you feel like you even have a great life? And this is when you have to raise your standards even more. And most of the people I coach already have a great life. They've got great jobs, great salaries. They have, MBAs or masters in something or another, families that love them, a great work ethic. But what I've realized is that this is where so many people get stuck. Myself included in the past. And, I keep checking myself now to make sure that I'm always raising my standards. We get worried about rocking the boat. And when you get worried about rocking the boat, you just start to plateau because you don't know what else to go after. And that next promotion may not be interesting or desirable. So what do? What do? You dream even bigger. You dream of a career move, a way to give back, a way to impact the world, to spend more time with family and friends, starting a business, whatever it is, you dream. You dream and you dream and you dream until you realize that this life, right here, right now, is great. But you can now see something even more amazing, and it can also be yours. So this hunger, this drive, this passion, this zeal all start to come back into play because you now have something to work towards. You now have this big fat circuit, right? And it's neural circuit that you can wrap that myelin around. And guess what? because it's big and it's fat and it really needs a lot, it's going to take persistence and it's going to take time to keep wrapping that myelin around this new big change. So it better be pretty juicy, whatever it is that you want. So what's the next step now? The next step he talks about in this book is called master coaching. He realized that the right coach combined with the quote unquote ignition and the deep practice could accelerate this whole learning and myelin development process even more. So the coach would need to have, real depth of knowledge. They'd have to have skilled perception, a way for them to be acutely aware of what's going on and when, and the ability to course correct and give direction as needed, and also to be brutally honest with their coachee so that that person can grow their talent at even faster speeds. So this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it does mean that talent doesn't grow alone. So whenever I have any big goals, I've realized that one consistent thing that has enabled me to be successful is I look for help from a person or a coach to achieve them. And why is that? Because I know through experience that the ability for someone to direct me as I'm moving through failures will help me move forward even faster. The right encouragement, the right reframe, the nudge or suggestions that are coming at the right time keep my circuits and your circuits firing again and again so that the learning curve becomes an exponential one. So, all this being said, I want you to think about what it is that you want. What is a big goal that you'd love to get that myelin wrapped around so you get better at it, you get quicker, you get more accurate, you develop a skill set that is world class. And of course, I'm applying it to not just, one thing, but I've thought about the ways that I've applying this to when I did my career change. And knowing that other people may have started on this career maybe 10 years ago, right? How do I become the best coach, right? The top 1%. How do I become an amazing trainer, amazing facilitator? How do I, absorb knowledge at a pace that's rapid, that's accurate, that's fast? Of course, it's going to require repeated practice and deep practice. Of course, it's going to require lots of stumbling. And of course, it's going to require help. It requires others. I, of course, myself have had coaches in my life. So whether it was when I was on the field in high school and playing hockey and lacrosse, I think we always think that there's like a specific area where coaching is required, but other areas where we don't need it. And I know many of you have either experienced my coaching or coaching from others, but there's always a person that can change your life by the way they've changed the way that you think. So I want to challenge you to find this person or to find a person to help you get to where you're trying to go even faster or at an even greater depth. So I've just set this goal to see if I can run a mile close to or at the pace, right? Like I'm thinking 6:30. If I can beat 6:30. If I can beat 6:30, right? That's the pace I ran in high school. It may have been 6:10, but I actually don't remember the exact number. I just know it's somewhere between those numbers. That's my goal. And I'll keep you posted on my progress over the next couple months. But either way, you know what I'll be doing, right? I'll be stumbling. I'll be probably in a little bit of maybe a great deal of pain. I'll be trying again. I'll be keeping my passion, that ignition alive for what I think is, my desire, my interest. And the reason why I think it'd be so fun to do this, right, is the person I'm becoming along the way and getting a coach. So this mindset around failure in terms of the person I'm becoming along the way and that this is required in order for me to get really skilled. This has completely changed the way that I look at failure and the way that I look at struggle. So with this relentless determination to not give up, True failure is no longer a possibility. So I challenge you all to find something you're deeply passionate about, that you have this desire to pursue, something that you can really get behind, and attack it with that same kind of fervor where you realize that failure is truly impossible. All right, so thanks so much again for joining us for this week's podcast. And I want to let you know that right now I'm offering up a few. My calendar is actually pretty booked, so if you look now, it may be hard to find one, but give it a try. I'm offering up a few complimentary sessions for a 30-minute life design coaching session. So the reason for this is because I know so many of us are so busy making a living, right? Just making ends meet, doing the day-to-day, getting to the, maybe the first half of your to-do list, that we don't actually spend any time designing our lives where we want to be either a year from now, let alone 5 years from now. So here's your chance to change that. You can go to www.mayemson.com/contact. You can fill out the form and schedule your session. So if there's something that you have on your mind, a decision, a path, or clarity that you're looking for, now is the time. You get to experience one-on-one coaching and what that is like and how it will transform your life in 30 minutes or even less. All right, my friends, have an amazing week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. It'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.